So, the legal use of force. This is crucially important for CCW carriers to learn, know, and understand. This is going to be the difference between you having a self-defense situation that turns into you being in prison, or remaining free and on the streets. So, we're all carrying our CCWs to protect ourselves and our families and those of us around us that we care about. It's vitally important to understand when you can and when you can't, when you're allowed to, when you're not allowed to. It's the difference between winding up being an inmate and winding up being a free person. Most of us out there, the reason you're taking this class, you're a law-abiding person. You're going through the steps that's required to get your CCW legally, to carry legally. We want to keep those two-way people legally carrying. My personal belief, the more of us out there that are legally carrying, the safer everybody else is going to be. When I was much younger and prettier, man, I had a job that took me to Texas. I went to the bank. As I walked up to the bank, I see these big orange signs that are 8-10 foot tall, big black letters. Your gun's welcome here. Well, being from California, walking into a bank in Texas and seeing these signs, I was a bit perplexed. So I asked the teller when I got there, what's up with the signs? She says, let me tell you, about 2 weeks ago, we had these two fellers come in. They decided they were going to try and rob the bank on a Friday. Well, Texas being the carrying state that it is, when these two fellers decided to try and rob the bank, everybody in line drew their firearms and held the bad guys down on the ground at gunpoint until the police were able to arrive. The bank manager said, I don't care what anybody says. I want big orange signs that says, your guns are welcome here at this bank. The whole point behind it is that the bad guy feels empowered by carrying a gun into places where he thinks nobody else is carrying a gun. The more good guys carrying a gun are going to stop bad guys from carrying a gun. Who's the only guy out there that's going to stop a bad guy with a gun? A good guy with a gun. Sad that this is what we've come to in our society, but this is where we're at, and it's just the way it is. But in order to remain being a good guy, you got to know where you can and where you can't, what you can and what you can't do. You have to understand what reasonable force is. You have to understand what deadly force is. Understanding what the use of force continuum actually is. How's a prosecutor going to evaluate the case? How do you defend your home? How do you defend your property? Well, these are all things that we're going to wind up covering in this legal use of force. Now, after I retired from the department, my beautiful bride said, you're not just going to sit home and lay on the couch and roll over and die like, unfortunately, most retired law enforcement does. The life expectancy for a retired law enforcement officer, 2 years. Because we go from fifth gear wide open to park. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a machine or whether it's your body. If you drove your vehicle cross country, flat out, pulled into the driveway and shut it off, do you think it's going to start after you do that? Probably not. The human body's not much different. So my beautiful bride actually likes me, and she says, you know what? I'm not going to let you sit on the couch. We opened a private investigations company. Now, if you're out there water skiing on workman's comp, I don't care. That's not what I do. And if your spouse is cheating on you, I'm sorry for that, but that's not what I do. We work with defense attorneys. Now, a lot of my street cop buddies said, oh, you switched to the dark side. No, I didn't switch to the dark side. I'm still doing the same exact thing I did before, which was just the facts. I just researched the facts. Those of you old enough to remember the old Dragnet show, just the facts, ma'am. That's what we're doing, and we're still doing it. But I'm working with these defense attorneys, and I'm in court quite often. I'm actually seeing firsthand what happens when it goes to court. Just because you pulled your gun and it was a justified, 100% justified defense situation doesn't mean you're not getting arrested. Doesn't mean your gun's not getting taken away. Doesn't mean you just get to walk away. Trust me, the cops are not going to go, thank you, citizen. Here's your gun back. Have a great day. It doesn't work that way. If the bad day ever comes where you have to utilize that tool of last defense, you are going to be arrested. Your gun is going to get confiscated. You are going to be put in the back of a patrol car, and you are going to be taken to jail. You are going to be charged. But this is where things can change dramatically on how you go about approaching these situations. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on when we start talking about CCW insurance. CCW insurance is one of my pet peeves. I can't stress it enough. The way that I feel about it personally is you buy a gun, you get some CCW insurance, then you buy cartridges. It's that important. But we'll come back to that later. Reasonable use of force. Deadly force. Force continuum. Defense of the home, defense of the property. My YouTube hero, William, is going to talk to us and he's going to show us about a whole case. He's an attorney out of Washington. Yes, I realize this is a California class based, or depending on where it is that you are, but you need to know the California laws. And I preface it with learn your laws because it could be the difference. But as far as self-defense in general goes, William does a wonderful job of explaining this to you. And if you had to go through and just read penal code, you're never going to be able to extrapolate what William's able to articulate and explain to you and make it crystal clear as to when and when you can't. Go ahead and watch William here.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we're going to talk again about a real-life scenario and how it can help educate us. The real-life scenario is this one right here. Now, this is not an isolated incident. We've seen a lot of this. And it has to do with what happens when cars get surrounded by angry mobs. Now, this is a really common question. I get this question at every single basic self-defense law class I teach, third Wednesday of every month at Security Gun Club. If you guys want to join us, I get this question. And the answer is a lot more complicated than you may think and will also depend greatly on what jurisdiction you may reside in. But today, let's try to get some general rules out, give you some food for thought, and let's talk about what can you do if a mob surrounds your car. Okay, so here's what we're talking about today. A scenario where you're just driving along, minding your own business, and the next thing you know, you have driven near or accidentally into a protest, and you are now surrounded by an angry mob. How could that ever happen, you say? Well, if you go back in our time machine to the summer of 2021, anywhere in Seattle or Portland, it could happen at any moment. You could literally be driving right by the downtown Nordstrom's in downtown Seattle, hang a left on Pine Street, and suddenly, oh my God, you're in the middle of an Antifa rally. So this is a real, true, honest scenario. And as we know, It's been happening because in the exercise of everyone's First Amendment rights, we have a group of individuals throughout the nation, mostly college students, by the way, who want to go out and support a terrorist organization such as Hamas. But we're beginning to see incidents like this unfold. So let's watch the tape here. Okay, and then if you notice, the driver gets out of the initial mob, but gets down to another intersection, and then there's video of what occurs down there. So take a look at this.
Motherfuckers, where you going now? He not going nowhere now. He not going nowhere now. Hold up, hold up. Hold up. Hold up. He not going nowhere now. He not going nowhere now. Hey, watch out! Motherfucker just ran.
Okay, so the scenario is, what can you do if, God forbid, you are in your car, which is suddenly surrounded by an angry mob? Before we can get to the answers, let's get the basic ground rules down. Now, I'm going to use Washington law because this is Washington gun law, and it's the one I know off the top of my head. I have geeked out on self-defense laws all around the nation. And with a few exceptions, this is going to be generally consistent with what occurs in your state. However, and the caveat I always give is, please consult with local counsel because every local law could have a nuance that could change the factual scenario. Now, here we go. What we know, self-defense in general, okay, is that we can use force to defend ourselves so long as the force we use is necessary, reasonable, both objectively and subjectively, and proportional. We also know that we cannot use lethal force unless, 1, you are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. 2, someone else in your presence is in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. 3, a felony is being committed upon your person. Or 4, a felony is being committed inside your home.
So, deadly force. William just got done explaining. This is about it. Now, it's going to depend on where you live. Certain things change. You got to know the laws of your area. Self-defense in general. These are about the only 4 reasons why you're able to legally draw your weapon and utilize your weapon and not wind up being an inmate in a prison somewhere. Number 1, you are in imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. Now, we talked about earlier that words matter. Attorneys go to school for a long time learning the definition of certain words. The word imminent is the key to this phrase. Imminent, it's going to, it's happening, there's nothing you can do to stop it. It is going to happen. Imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. Someone in your presence is in imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. A felony is being committed upon your person. There is a percentage of the people that are going to be watching this who do have law training. But over 90% of the people that are watching this video never went to law school, never went to a police academy. They understand what a felony is, but can you articulate to the 12 village idiots, the jury, what the felony is? Can you actually explain? Per this penal code, this felony was being committed upon my person. Not many of us can do that. A felony being committed inside your home. Once again, how many of us can actually tell the jury exactly what the felony was that was being committed, which allowed you the justification for the use of lethal force? So to break it down real simply, the only reason that you are going to legally be able to use your gun and stay out of prison, being a free person, is that you are in imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. Now, just because the guy was 5'40" and 360 pounds and he kicked in the door at 2 o'clock in the morning and says, "Where's Lucy?" doesn't mean you get to shoot him. You have to be able to articulate and tell the 12 village idiots what the imminent threat was. Bare fear alone does not justify the use of lethal force. I was in fear for my life. How many times have we heard that one? It doesn't matter if you were in fear for your life, because bare fear alone is not sufficient for the use of lethal force. You have to be able to articulate the imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. Very simply, if I'm standing here with my hands in my pocket and I say, I am going to take the living breath out of you, does that mean that I'm actually going to be able to do it? Can you tell the jury what made that an imminent threat? Now, if I take my hands out of my pockets, I ball my hands into fists, I stand into a bladed position, and then articulate that threat, you can tell the jury he was standing in a fighting position. His hands were in fists. He was advancing towards me. And that is the difference between an imminent threat or somebody just standing there with their hands in their pockets. Once again, bare fear alone does not constitute the imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. Just because I kick in your door at 2 o'clock in the morning doesn't mean that you can legally shoot me. You have to be able to explain to the jury, who probably knows nothing about firearms, probably knows nothing about the law, where the law was violated, that they constitute the imminent threat of death or great bodily injury to you. Once again, felony being committed upon your person. But do you have the education? Do you have the training to be able to tell the jury what that felony was? Do you have the education or the training to be able to tell the jury what that felony was that was being committed inside your home? Probably not. Once again, bare fear alone, just because I was in fear for my life, does not constitute the use of lethal force. I want every law-abiding citizen to be able to continue to be free and law-abiding CCW carriers. Because there is the possibility you might be saving my life somewhere down the road. You might be saving somebody I love and care about down the road. I want to see you, as an American, exercising your Second Amendment right and being able to carry your firearm to defend yourself and to defend your family and other loved ones around you. Please, please research these laws and understand when you can and when you can't. It's not like it is on TV. The castle doctrine. In California, do we have a castle doctrine? What is the castle doctrine? Well, in short terms, a man's home is his castle. That's the castle doctrine principle. Do we have one here in California? Ask yourself the question. Do you know the answer to that? Yes, we do. But it's limited. Take a look.
Can you shoot an intruder in your home? Well, in California, you can, and you would have to rely on what's known as a castle doctrine. So if an intruder's in your home and you feel and reasonably feel that your life is threatened or your well-being of you, yourself, or anyone in that home is in grave danger, you have a right to use force to defend yourself or defend others, all the way up to and including lethal force. So yeah, you can. A lot of people believe you should shoot and kill anyone who's in your home that poses a threat. But like everything else, you got to be careful. Can't be putting bullets in somebody's back as they're leaving your place. Can't do it. You find yourself in a situation, obviously you need to do what you need to do in the moment, but after the moment's done, the last thing you should be doing is talking to the cops about it, is laying the reasons why you did what you did. Talk to an attorney first. Make sure you can avail yourself of the castle doctrine, and you don't close any doors to any viable defenses you may have, especially in California. Protect your freedom, protect your future, know your rights.
So, violent encounters and their aftermath. The physiological fight or flight syndrome, the adrenaline, the endorphins, the visual, auditory, and memory distortions, the attack itself. Evaluating your options. When you're left with no other choice, the immediate aftermath. When the police arrive, and the financial aftermath. These are just some of the things that we're going to cover here. A lot of people will try and give you this class and they'll just tell you, go ahead and carry your gun and qualify and send you on your way. But they don't actually do the student any kind of service by telling them exactly what happens after that bad day actually happens. Once again, we refer to this gun as our tool of last resort. And you, as the CCW carrier, have to remember, this is the tool of last resort. If violent crime is to be curbed, it's only the intended victim who can do it. Three, two, one. If violent crime is to be curbed, it's only the intended victim who can do it. The felon does not fear Sorry. I'm actually going to have to look at it to read it because I can't read it off of this. If violent crime is to be curbed, it's only the intended victim who can do it. The felon does not fear the police, doesn't fear the judges, nor the jury. Therefore, he must be taught to fear his victim. Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cooper, United States Marine Corps, retired. Semper Fi, Lieutenant Colonel. What's he trying to tell you here? Sometimes you have to be your own first responder. Unfortunately, the way that our current system of law enforcement works is that we are reactive rather than proactive. And sometimes things happen so quickly that you don't have time to wait for outside assistance. The simple analogy is Let me ask you a question. Do you have a fire extinguisher in your own house? Why? You have a fire department. Because sometimes fires will break out and you have to react right now. You don't have 7 minutes to wait for the fire department. Your house could be burned down. Well, the same thing goes with being able to defend yourself and to protect your family and others. And that's exactly what the Colonel is getting at. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman on sheep. Most people in our society are sheep. They're kind, gentle, productive creatures. The vast majority of Americans are not inclined to hurt one another. The odds of becoming a victim of a violent crime is considerably less than 1 in 100 any given year. We may be living in the most violent times, but violence is still remarkably rare. Simple question. How many of you have actually been a victim of violent crime? Yes, there is a percentage who's going to say yes, but the vast majority will say no. It doesn't happen every day. So it is still remarkably rare, even though we watch the Lies at 5 every night that tell you how bad things are getting day by day, city by city. When was the last time it actually happened to you? It is still remarkably rare. On sheep, I mean nothing negative by calling them sheep. However, the fact that sheep cannot survive without some type of hard-sided protection. What kind of natural defenses do sheep have? Well, most of the time, most animals have some form of defense mechanisms. Sheep don't. Their only kind of defense mechanisms as themselves is to have the herd mentality, safety in numbers. And if you ever watched Marlon Perkins in the Wild Kingdom episodes, you'll have seen that lion pick on a whole herd and still come away with its evening dinner. So the safety in numbers thing doesn't always work out. Police officers, soldiers, and armed citizens, and other warriors. These are the sheepdogs that are out there. When it comes to sheep, the rancher usually puts out sheepdogs. The proverbial predator to the sheep is the wolf. So how do you defend against the wolf? The wolf is nothing more than a large dog. So you put another large dog out there because the dog does understand what the other dog does. They understand their tactics. They understand how they move. They understand how they conceal themselves. And what better to fight another dog than a large dog themselves? The sheepdog. Police officers, soldiers, armed citizens, and other warriors. Perhaps someday that'll change. For now, they need warriors to protect themselves from the predators. So do we. So when we use the phrase sheep or sheeple, it's not meant as a negative, derogatory burn. It's just simply an analogy. Is it in you to be a sheepdog? It's a rhetorical question. Morally, ethically, and personal beliefs all come into this factor. Is it in you to protect yourself? Is it in you to protect somebody else? Once again, that's rhetorical for you to answer within yourself. If it's not, then this may not be the option for you. And I would much rather you not exercise your Second Amendment right if it's not in you to be able to protect yourself and your family. Because the predator is probably going to take your own defense weapon and use it against you. And that's the last thing I want to see. But once again, the more you get trained by a certified instructor, the more confident and competent you become with that tool. That firearm is nothing more than a tool. And the more comfortable you become with it, the more skilled you become, the more confident you become. So get some training, get confident, get competent with that tool of last resort. We're going to show a video. Warning, it's graphic. This man pulls out a shotgun out of his pants. Nobody in the church noticed this guy walking with this big long limp to begin with. We're also going to look at this man sitting down. There is no greater love than a man willing to lay down his own life to protect his family or his friends. And sadly, he did give up his life for this. As you see, he was the first victim. Why? Because he was in a seated position. He was in a seated position, and he had to stand up, making himself a rather large target, making himself noticed, as he drew his pistol, was shot by the bad guy. Did it have to happen that way? What if the guy got a little bit of training, and he actually learned how to draw from a seated position? Would the bad guy have even seen it? Probably not. Because the bad guy noticed the man stand up and pose a threat. Had he stayed in a seated position, there's a good likelihood he could have probably stopped the bad guy before the bad guy even saw him. It's a bunch of what ifs, we don't know. But let me ask the question, you as the CCW holder, have you ever learned to draw your pistol from a seated position? Have you ever practiced that before? If you haven't, I highly recommend that you get with a certified instructor and learn how to draw from a seated position. We find ourselves most commonly spending a lot of time in a seated position in our vehicles. And where are you most vulnerable? In your car, in traffic, surrounded by other vehicles that eliminate the possibility of escape. Sometimes you may have to find yourself into a situation where you do have to learn how to draw from a seated position to be able to engage a bad guy inside your vehicle. It's difficult to do with a seatbelt on. It's difficult to do from a seated position, especially under the stress and under the threat of immediate death or great bodily injury. Get some training. Find a certified instructor, somebody who's qualified to be able to help you with these different things, because this is a position that we find ourselves in many hours in our day during our commutes. And if you don't practice it, you don't know. We're going to continue on with the video here. One man all the way in the back. I think we've estimated this at somewhere at about a 20-yard shot. One shot, 20 yards with a pistol, took the bad guy down. To the best of my knowledge, this is a retired law enforcement agent that took the bad guy out and stopped the situation. Who's going to take out a bad guy with a gun? A good guy with a gun. Somebody who was trained. As we continue on with the video, you're going to see several other people coming in with their firearms drawn. You're going to see a lot of crossfire potential happening. You're going to see most of the people who are reacting to a threat that has already been eliminated. Why are you reacting to a threat that has been eliminated? Would you call the fire department and tell them to come to a fire that's already been extinguished? The same answer goes for a situation like this. This is where the church security team needs to train. And they need to start looking for other potential threats, because bad guys are predators. And predators don't just work by themselves. More often than not, they're cowards, and they run in packs. So from a tactical standpoint, the best thing to do is to be able to protect the congregation in this instance is to start looking for other threats. We go through and we teach as we draw our pistols, and the threat no longer exists. Prior to holstering our pistol, and we'll cover this in much bigger detail, is to do a 360-degree scan and assess. For the right-handed person, you're going to look to your left, you're going to look to your right, and then you're going to look all the way over your shoulder directly behind you so that you can see and scan for additional threats in a 360-degree angle prior to slowly and reluctantly holstering your firearm. That's only if the threat no longer exists. We'll continue on with the video. As you see, there were a lot of different people coming in. There was a lot of potential crossfire situations. There was a lot of potential threat angles that were not covered. How do you eliminate this? The church security team needs to train. Train, train, train. You're going to hear me talk about this an awful lot throughout this whole presentation. Elvis Presley, train, train. Sorry if I hurt your ears. So back to Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cooper once again. Remember the first rule of a gunfight? Have a gun. Now, I don't know if Wyatt Earp actually said this or not. This is what the internet says. But the internet says, I'm also a famous French model. Bonjour. Doesn't mean it's true. No wise man ever took a handgun to a fight. There is some truth to that, because as any soldier who's gone into combat will tell you, their primary weapons system is their rifle. They're going to utilize that handgun to fight their way to their rifle. That's why no wise man ever took a handgun to a fight. But if that's all we have, it's a heck of a lot better than not having anything at all, isn't it? The other thing is, how many of you are actually carrying an extra magazine? If you're not carrying an extra magazine, you need to be. In California, what's the highest capacity magazine we're allowed to legally carry? That's right. Unfortunately, at this point in time, it's a 10-round magazine. The fight is going on with CRPA, Gun Owners of America, NRA. They're all fighting for us. Please support them. That's how we're going to keep the erosion of our Second Amendment rights from going any further. But back to the 10-round magazine. Carry an extra magazine. How many of you remember watching the old Bat Masterson, Gene and Roy Rogers, and the gunfight at OK Corral? There they were, standing in the street, high noon. And they did that standoff right there, and that quick draw. Bang, one shot, and the bad guy hits the ground. Does it happen that way? Not in real life. Maybe in Hollywood, but not in real life. Sometimes it takes a lot of rounds to take a bad guy down, to eliminate that threat. I'm going to show you another YouTube video hero of mine, the donut operator. And we thank him for putting this on and actually being able to give you this analogy in this video to help you to understand sometimes it takes more than one round or one magazine to put a bad guy on the ground.
Hi everyone, Donut here. We're going to take a look at a shooting today that took place in East Cleveland, Ohio. It's not a very long shooting, so it's not going to be a very long video. I just wanted to get it out there to show the point once again that sometimes people need to be shot a lot of times before they're not dangerous. What had happened was the East Cleveland Police Department got a call that there was a rape in progress. They arrived on scene to see 48-year-old Maurice Brown standing over his victim with a gun in his hand. He approached his female victim with a gun pointed at her head. Police officers told him to drop the gun several times, and he started striking her in the face with it. From what it looks like on the body camera footage and from the footage a bystander took is that the first police officer standing beside the patrol car for cover fired 11 shots. Reports state that another officer who was there fired shots also. It sounds like the last 3 shots are probably his. Something I want you to notice here is that it takes 14 seconds from the time the first shot went off until the guy dropped.
Drop it! Drop it! Drop it! That's my fuck! That's my mama, man! That's my mama! Back up! That's my mama! That's my mama!
It's pretty crazy what the human body can do. I made another video kind of about this same subject where a police officer shot a guy over a dozen times, hit him in vital organs, and the dude just kept shooting at him. You can see that video right here. Like I said, there's not really too much to break down. Bad guy did something really bad. Police bring justice to the crime scene. This video is for sure going to get age restricted, and I don't know what's going on with YouTube throttling my views lately on my past few videos, but it kind of stinks. So if you'd like to help support the channel, I'm going to be over at twitch.tv/donutoperator. We can hang out and talk about crime stuff or do whatever you guys want to. Just remember, if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to me over at Twitch for absolutely free, and it gives me a few bucks to help the channel. I look forward to seeing you all there. Everyone, please have a fantastic day.
So you can see why it's important to carry an extra magazine. Takes more than 1 or 2 bullets to put a bad guy down sometimes. The last thing you ever want to do is find yourself in the situation in the middle of the world's most dangerous parking lot, run out of ammunition, and not have anything left to defend yourself. So please, if you're not carrying an extra magazine, start. So FBI statistics say that average nationwide, the police officers that are involved in a shooting with multiple rounds, their average target hit ratio out of 15 to 16 rounds in their pistol is 4. 4 out of 16 rounds that the police fire actually hit their intended target. They train. They're making their living carrying a gun. How often are you training? Do you think that you're going to have a better ratio than 4 out of 16? If not, you need to start training. You need to get with a certified instructor. Start getting that proper training. And carry an extra magazine. When the police arrive, please be aware of your muzzle control. The last thing in the world you want to do is have your worst day happen. You discharged your firearm, the cops show up, and you go, "Oh, thank God you guys are here." That's going to turn into a really bad day for you. When the police arrive, my slide says, tell the officer you're going to comply with his commands. Don't just tell him that. Just comply. Do whatever it is that the cops are telling you. Trust me, by the time that the cops show up, they're going to be advised that there was a firearm involved. They're going to have their pistols drawn. Chances are you're covered. You don't need to have your gun out anymore. When the police arrive and they start giving you commands, do exactly what they say. Put the gun on the ground. Get down on the ground. Put the gun on the ground. Get yourself onto the ground. Don't argue with them. There is no place in a parking lot that has a courtroom in it. Your day in court is your day in court, not in the middle of a scene or in the middle of a parking lot or on the side of a road. Do not argue with the cops. Just do what they tell you. You are going to be handcuffed. You are going to have your pistol taken into evidence. You are probably going to be put in the back of a police car. When the bad day happens, if you are the only person in the parking lot and you have to call 911 yourself, call 911. Tell them that there is an incident. You need 2 ambulances. Why do you need 2 ambulances? You just survived the gunfight. Why do I need the ambulance? Because my blood pressure is probably going to be through the roof. You're probably going to be close to stroke level blood pressure. The last thing you want to do is to be handcuffed in the back of a cop car, have your blood pressure go through the roof, and have a stroke in the cop car. You want 2 ambulances. And hang up the phone. Do not talk to the police. Do not talk to the police. When you are on 911, guess who you're talking to? The police. Tell them where you are. Tell them there's an incident. You need 2 ambulances, and hang the phone up. Do not talk to the police. That's what your attorney is for. Do not give a statement. I don't care if you live in a small town and you went to prom with the cop. Do not talk to the cops. You can tell them what your name is if you want, but don't go any further. Please don't lay the foundation for what it was that you did, trying to justify what you did. You're going to want to try and explain to people why you did what you did. Don't. Do not talk to the police. I need an ambulance. Go to the hospital. Why? It's going to buy you a little bit of time. You're going to go to the hospital, and then you're going to talk to the doctor. And if the police are in the emergency room with you, as you're talking to the doctor, ask the doctor to ask the officer to leave. He's going to ask the officer to leave, and the officer will leave, because you don't want anything that you say being transcribed, recorded, or taken into a report. Your privacy with your doctor is your privacy. The police do not need to be involved in that. And for God's sakes, call whatever CCW insurance carrier you have. You make that phone call. You get an attorney to come and bail you out. You get the attorney to make your initial statement. Do not talk to the police. That's what your attorney is for. Control your speech. All you want to tell the cops, officer, I plan to comply with your investigation 100%, but not until I speak to my attorney. What happened? Officer, I plan to comply with your investigation 100%, but not until I speak to my attorney. That's great. I'm just trying to get some information as to what took place here. Officer, I plan to comply with your investigation 100%, but not until I speak to my attorney. Do not talk to the cops. It's going to be the biggest hang-up is something that you said. How many times have you seen on live PD, cops, any of the TV shows? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. That's the truth. They're going to take anything you say, and they will hold it against you in a court of law. Do not say anything other than, officer, I plan to comply with your investigation, but not until I speak to my attorney. I can't stress that enough. Keep yourself out of trouble. Help yourself before you even leave the house. Learn this phrase, commit it to memory. Officer, I plan to comply with your investigation 100%, but not until I speak to my attorney. I pretty much beat that into the ground, but I want you to remember that because it's vital that you do. Try to identify any witnesses. When the cops come up and they ask you, what happened? What happened? He saw it. She saw it. They saw it. Have the cops go talk to them. Get their report. Get their side of the story of what they saw. There's chances are some snot-nosed kid's going to be holding his phone wanting to put it on YouTube later on. Go talk to him. He was a witness. And he's got it on video. You always want to be able to delegate to somebody else so that you don't have to speak. If you're in the world's most dangerous parking lot, your bad day happens, look for somebody. Call 911. Tell somebody else to call 911. Tell somebody else to go wait at the corner for the ambulances. 2 of them. 1 for you, 1 for the bad guy. And 3, don't talk to the cops. He saw it. She saw it. They saw it. Have them give the description. Have them give the witness statements. You don't need to say anything until your attorney talks for you. You're going to have your firearms confiscated. You're going to probably have your car searched. You're probably going to have your house searched, and you may even have your business searched after an incident. Be advised, that is coming. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you what is real and what's actually going to happen. And most importantly, get yourself some CCW insurance. You may have your firearms confiscated. You may have your house searched. You may have your car searched. The outcome is going to resolve in court. And that's where you want it to resolve. You don't want it resolved in the parking lot. Get some CCW insurance. There's a lot of different companies out there that it's going to help you with that.